Everybody. Lovely to see so many of you here for our special Women in Journalism session on mentoring and being a mentee and being a mentor. So thanks so much for coming along. I mean, hopefully most of you who are here are already either mentees or mentors through Women in Journalism. And if not, then hopefully maybe you may become one next year. So just sort of by way of introduction, my name is Alison Phillips. I'm the editor of The Mirror and I'm also the current chair of Women in Journalism. And I'm going to introduce you all to our amazing panel in just one moment. But just as a bit of background, Women in Journalism has been running a mentoring scheme stretching back to, I think, about the end of 2016. And since that time, it's just grown and grown and grown in terms of the number of people that have joined, but also the kind of engagement and sort of enrichment really that people have got from being both mentees and mentors, because obviously as a mentee there's lots of benefits, but there's also huge benefits I think for being a mentor as well. And this year we're really pleased. We've got around about 85 pairings of people, and so today what we just wanted to do was sort of talk about how it works and how our panelists have found it helpful in their careers and how perhaps you can ensure that you're getting the absolute best value from it. So now let's move on to our panel. So we've got, first of all, hi to Ellie Austin. There's Ellie.
Hi.
Hi. Do you want to just sort of start by introducing yourself as to what you do now and how you first became a mentee with Women in Journalism?
Yeah, of course. So I currently work at the Wall Street Journal in New York. My job title is news editor of live journalism, which is a kind of sector that doesn't necessarily exist at British newspapers. It's kind of the Wall Street Journal's version of a radio and TV station. Mm-hmm. So I present on it, and I also kind of book interviews and chase stories and work with journalists all around the newsroom to put together live events, radio broadcasts and TV broadcasts. And then I also write for the life and art section of the paper as well. And prior to that, I was the assistant editor on the Sunday Times magazine in London for 3 years. And I worked at that time with Eleanor Mills, who was actually my mentor, who I was originally matched with in 2016. I started my career at Radio Times, applied to be on the mentoring scheme, was matched with Eleanor, and ultimately ended up being hired by her to work at the Sunday Times magazine.
So that is a fantastic success story, isn't it? Both from your own hard work, but also from the Women in Journalism mentoring scheme. And so now we're going to go to Eamon, who is the current Women in Journalism intern. But Eamon, you tell us a little bit about your story.
Hi everyone. So my name's Eamon, and I'm currently the current WiJ mentee, sorry. And I'm currently doing my NCTJ at News Associates. I started with Women in Journalism back in December, and I've been paired with Jem Collins, who owns Journo Resources. And when I was starting to get into journalism, I used to go on Jem's page quite a lot and like apply to loads of different websites, and I actually applied to the Women in Journalism internship program through Jem's website. So when I got on and then I had Jem as my mentor, it was quite a nice round circle moment. So yeah.
Fantastic, that's brilliant. And also we should say that award winning as well, aren't you? You've just won the Hugh Cudlip award this year as well, so well done you. And now we go to kind of multi mentee mentor Amanda Nunn, who is news editor at ITV News and has been a mentee and a mentor. So Amanda, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
So as you say, I'm a news editor at ITV News. I have worked at Channel 5, Channel 4, and before that I worked for a number of newspapers, both local and national. And then before that I used to work for the UN in Palestine and Syria, so I had a bit of a career change. I am indeed a mentee and a mentor. So my mentee is a journalist at the BBC. She works on local, and through our magical relationship over the last year, she's now started reporting on national news channels, which is because of obviously the contacts that I have. And my mentor is Donna Ferguson, who is unbelievable. She's a freelance journalist, and I went freelance at Christmas, and it was just the perfect pairing for me, because things like what do I do about my taxes and all these other very important journalistic questions were things that she could help me with.
Brilliant. So I think in that point, I'm going to come to you first, Amanda, having on that point, because could you sum up for everybody what you think makes for a successful mentoring relationship.
Well, I guess I'm a like type A personality, so everything has to be really organized, and I can't do anything without a list. So as a mentor and a mentee, on our first meeting, I sat down, I was like, okay, what is it you want to achieve? Like, choose 3 things that you want to do over the next year, and that's all we're going to work on together. And they can change, like sometimes like your career develops over that year and you can decide that you have different priorities. But then we just broke down each of the steps. So for my mentee, she needed a new show reel. Her one, it wasn't up to scratch for applying for national. So I got 6 colleagues who work at ITN who are all on-screen journalists to watch her show reel and give me feedback. And that really helped boost her, because I think it can, sometimes you feel like you're in a little bit of a vacuum. And actually when you have all these great people saying you're really good, you just need to change some things. So I guess you have these like big goals, but until someone sits down, it's like, okay, how are we going to get there? Your CV is rubbish. Your show reel needs some work.
So that's interesting. How brutal should a good mentor be with their mentee?
I think if you're not honest with someone, then you're not creating like a space of like vulnerability and truth, without meaning to sound too American, between the two of you, because it's meant to be like your little safe space where you can be yourself and be like, look, I hate this about myself, and just be really honest about it. And the other person can be like, all right, let's work on that. I think if you go into it and you're pretending to be someone that you're not, then actually you're not honest about the things that are holding you back.
Yeah, interesting. So Ellie, so going back to when you first applied, can you remember at that point what you felt worked about that relationship between yourself and Eleanor, your mentor? What was the secret to its success?
It's kind of what Amanda said, that I went in with a very specific goal, which was that I was at a point where I knew I wanted to like progress and change jobs, and I didn't really know what to do or how to go about it. I was writing features at Radio Times and I wanted to go onto a national newspaper. I didn't have the contact. I'd only been in the industry for 2 years. And so Eleanor, I remember our first meeting, she was pretty tough with me, and she said, like, I'm not going to hand any of this to you on a plate, but I will put you in touch with some people, and then you have to send them all 5 ideas. And if your ideas are good enough, they'll, commission you to write something or whatever. So I think, you can't go in and expect that your mentor is going to get you a job or give you a cover story or get you on screen, but they're like a really, really important tool in your kit to help you make it happen. And I think you'll get a sense from that initial meeting as to, how they are willing to help. And you do have to be honest with each other. So as the mentee, say, this is what I want. And then as the mentor, say, okay, this is how I think I am best placed to help you. Let's go forward. And then from that point, I would say when you initially meet, make sure you talk about like what the cadence of your meetings are going to be going forward, so that you're both in the same. You're probably not going to be seeing each other every week, and that does not make it a failure. So have a conversation about what's realistic for you both.
And what do you think on that point about the frequency? What do you sort of think is a sort of sensible frequent? I mean, now I think it's got a lot easier since we sort of got used to a life on Zoom, because it used to be that you had to meet people in person, but I found that doing it online is just as effective, if perhaps more so.
Yeah, so I think Eleanor and I agreed initially that we would meet every 3 months, and that I could email or text her in the interim if I had any questions. But that didn't necessarily happen, because during the course of that year, she commissioned me to write a piece for the Sunday Times magazine. And then as a result, it changed to, oh, maybe we could look at you coming to the Sunday Times magazine. So I think had that not happened, we probably would have met 4 times during the course of the year and had contact in between times. But what I would say is, I think I learned very early on with Eleanor, is that Eleanor, as so many mentors on this scheme are, was an incredibly busy person. She was running the Sunday Times magazine, she was doing women in journalism, had a family. And so we would put in touch, and then I didn't hear from her for ages. And I was thinking, have I done something to upset her? Like, what, what?
Yeah.
And she was so busy. And so my tip would be, if your mentor has, I don't know, like an assistant or an editorial assistant or a PA or whatever it is, also ask them for the contact details of that person, because it's going to be much easier to schedule via them than directly via your mentor.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then Eamon, tell us about when you went into the whole mentoring thing. What had you hoped it would be like to start with?
So I started to get into mentoring. It was sort of at the start of my journalism career as well, and I think I was quite unsure whether I was going to go into sports journalism or news journalism, and I think being able to figure out what I wanted to do and gain some experience, and especially if you're sort of just starting in the industry, or you're thinking of making a transition from news to sports or to politics or anything else. So I think I had in mind that I wanted to figure out what career I wanted, and I think that's where it really helped, because Gem and I sat down and planned 3-month goals throughout the year, and that was really helpful. And also just gaining experience, like writing news articles, and then also doing sport, and doing what I going with what I liked more, and that was obviously sport. So yeah, I think it definitely helps you get a clearer vision of what you want, and I think that only happens if you're honest with yourself and honest with your mentor about what you want to achieve and what you can, what you're capable of. And I remember I was quite ashamed of not having much journalism experience, and I was really scared to sort of admit to it. But I just was really honest, and I was I haven't got a commission yet, and things like that. And Gem she really helped me. And again, I think what Ellie said, it's not really taking everything. You do have to do the work yourself, but having a mentor is it's so supportive in doing that, and also making mistakes as well.
Yeah, so I think then we've all kind of agreed that at the outset it's really important to have some clear kind of point about what you want to achieve during this year-long process, so that there's real clarity on both sides as to where it's all going. And then once it's kind of up and running, Amanda, what level of it, I mean, a lot of what we're talking about so far, it's almost it sounds like going to see a therapist, where you sort of talk about, this is how I'm feeling, and I'm not sure, I'm not very confident, and all this. How much of it is that kind of stuff? And how much of it is actually still quite practical stuff around, like you said, about the show reel, or somebody showing a bit of copy and there's a load of literals in it? And then, what's a sort of a decent balance?
I think it's probably better if I talk about me as a mentee for this one. So obviously you have all these big plans throughout your year, and then the year happens to you because you don't know what's going to happen. And one of my mentors, so before Christmas, they were changing my job at Channel 5, and I basically had the option of taking a job that I didn't want to do, trying to find another job within a month within ITN, which just before Christmas was very difficult, or taking redundancy. And my mentor was just take the money. And I was like, what? She was like, take the money. And I was like, I can't not have a job. Having a job is my identity. And all of this stuff comes out that you don't sort of realize is just below the surface. And she was like, look, you know enough people, everyone will help you get work. And it was after I left that conversation, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to take the money. And it was still it took about 2 weeks for it to finally dawn on me that that's what I was going to do. But I mean, she was absolutely right. So we're now not even halfway through the year, and I now earn 25 grand more than I did in that job. So
wowza, that's
totally
incredible. And that's all about confidence, isn't it? Having the confidence to take the leap.
Totally. And although I know that I sound quite brutal, there have definitely been times with one of my mentors, I just can't ask for pay rises. I'm so rubbish at it. And I was like, look, it's not that I'm not willing, I just don't know what to do. And actually that time my mentor was a man, and he was like, sit down and I'm going to show you. And he just wrote the email, and all of a sudden I just got it. Before I'd been really negative and being I don't feel like I'm valued enough. And he was just this is why I'm good. This is why I'm good. This is why I'm good. Give me more money. And actually when you have that moment, although it is brutal, that is support. That is what you need.
Yeah, because although I suppose, Ellie, you can read a lot of this kind of advice online or in books or, magazine articles or whatever, is it something about having a real live person in front of you saying it to you, and the fact that you've by that point got a bit of a relationship that makes it more valuable, do you think?
Yeah, because although I knew I wanted to work at a newspaper, I didn't have the confidence to think that I'd be good enough to do it. So when I then showed a bit of writing to Eleanor, and she was like, oh, we could run this, that just changed the game for me. And I would honestly say that meeting her and her eventually taking me to the Sunday Times, like it changed the course of my career, because I don't think I would have had two things. I don't think I would have had the guts to apply for the job that I ended up getting. And B, realistically, I probably wouldn't have got it applying cold. I think that so much of journalism is someone putting in a good word for you. And so there's no way that I would have ended up where I was had I not had that like live person in front of me to kind of taking a bet on me, because she didn't know me particularly. She'd just seen a bit of my work and we'd had lunch once, but it changed everything. It really did.
Amazing. And then, and Eamon as well. I mean, for you starting out, how much are you looking for, or do you feel you valued from real kind of nuts and bolts sort of stuff, and how much from just having somebody who's got your back, really?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I feel like, particularly because I'm at the minute doing my NCTJ, I've sort of realised that there's only so much that you can learn in a newsroom, and so much of journalism actually happens with your interaction with other journalists and how you are with other people. And that's been one of my like most valuable lessons from doing my NCTJ, because I can learn all of these, you know, I can just about learn shorthand, I can do all of these things, but really it's about your relationships, and that's what journalism is. So I think a lot of it does come down to that, and that's where having obviously a mentor is so important. And I also think, you know, being like a woman of colour, it's so important to have someone on your side, particularly in this industry, and have them like fighting for you. And like also, you know, I feel like a lot of women of colour can also go through imposter syndrome, particularly in this industry, and having someone to just be there as a reminder to be like, no, actually, do you know what, you are good enough, you do deserve to be here, is so important. And I feel like if I didn't have that reminder, I would have found it even harder to sort of break into the industry. So I think it's so crucial.
No, it's brilliant. Thank you. I mean, and now I think that sort of segues into this question. So please, we've got some really interesting questions coming in. And so please, everybody do pop them into the chat and we'll come back to them. But there's one here that somebody's sent, and it says, I'm a mentee, and while my mentor is great, we've both noticed we don't have that much in common work-wise. You know, she doesn't have many contacts that I might find useful, and doesn't do the type of work I am doing either. So, Amanda, let's go to you. I mean, is that scenario a disaster, or can it be rescued? What would you recommend?
I'm surprised actually, because I think that even if it was in an industry that I didn't know, I'd still ask around and try and like help them find someone, because we all know each other really. So I don't know, maybe it's a case of whether or not they can try and reach out to the people that they know to see if they can get you in the right place, but not like, I don't see it as a negative, because there will be things that your mentor can help you with, even if it's not contact in that way. Like you have to understand that it's not like a live or die, or you can only have one mentor. I've had loads, I love them. I've got like a little bank of people now that when I've got like a problem, I know which one I can go to for which. So I think it's seeing what that person can offer you and making sure you get as much out of them as possible.
I think, because I mentor a woman at the moment who, through a different mentoring scheme, who is a accountant for a housing association, which literally I could not have less knowledge about accountancy or money than you could possibly imagine. But actually, when you start talking, it's about all the other things about that are very common amongst us all, that, you know, she doesn't feel confident in meetings, she feels like the blokes will talk over her, she wants to move but she doesn't want to tell them that she doesn't want to come into work 5 days a week, and so there's always those things, aren't there? And I remember about 3 years ago, maybe through Women in Journalism, I was matched with a woman who was a food critic, and I thought, oh my god, if it's not baked beans on toast, I'm really not your person. And again, it was a really amazing, we had a great year, and we met up, and she used to take me to really nice restaurants for lunch, which was even better. But again, it's the same issues beneath. And so I guess the person who's put this thing in the chat, maybe you shouldn't let your mentor off the hook. Maybe you should talk about the issues that you are facing, you know, not the specifics like about the actual journalism, but the broader things about what's going on in your career, and see if you can, don't let them say, well, I don't know anything about that, just sort of keep pushing. Ellie, what would you say to that person?
I would say kind of similar to what Amanda said. First of all, I don't think any connection in journalism is a waste ever, because you never know when in 5-10 years time or whatever that person may need to get in touch with you, or you need to get in touch with them. I think just networking on the whole is one of the keys to a really successful career as a journalist. So don't write anyone off because they might not be immediately incredibly useful to you now. But yeah, I would talk, you just kind of need to, it's kind of like a puzzle, working out, okay, we've been paired, where do we connect and how can we make the most of that for this year, whilst also saying to them, who else might you know who could be more obviously relevant to the specific things I'm trying to achieve right now. I would never be offended if someone said to me, oh, do you know someone, because I don't know about news journalism necessarily, like, do you know someone who's been a news reporter on a national desk? Okay, that's not going to be me who can give you that help, but let me think about who I do know. I would never be offended to be asked that question.
And I don't know, once you've got sort of going, so going back to how the kind of the process works, Eamon, tell us, so you're now about sort of halfway through, probably coming up to halfway through the mentoring process. Do you sort of feel as time goes on, the relationship kind of adjusts, and do you feel that there's different things you'd like to achieve in that second half of the year?
Yeah, definitely. I think it does transition, and I think it is, as you build trust, I feel like you can start to speak about a lot more with your mentor. And I think definitely when I sort of transitioned from just starting out to sort of having commissions and then going on to do my NCTJ, I think now I've also changed my vision. Like I know I'm headed towards sports. So now the conversations around, okay, so what kind of sports journalism can we get into, and the specifics around that. So I do think it does transition as your career progresses. And I think it's just about having that like open conversation and having that honest chat with them about where you are, the progress that you've made. And one thing that's really good is also, it's great to also talk about the future, but also reflect on the progress that you've made, because we can all forget, how far that we have actually come. So it's really important to have those sort of weaved into your discussions as well. And especially for me, I can't believe that in December I didn't have a job, I didn't have a diploma, I had graduated, I was unemployed, I had no idea where I was going till 6 months later, to having being on various different programs and things like that. So I think it's important for both you and your mentor to also reflect, and when that transition happens.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I just wanted, I'd quite like to bring Hilly James into the conversation now. Are you there, Hilly? Can we see you?
Yes, I'm here.
So Hilly, for those that you don't know, is the absolute mastermind who brings the mentoring together every year. And it's an incredible job, really, trying to match up all these people together. And there's a couple of people asked a similar question that I wanted to put to you, which is people that are maybe slightly further on in their career, is there kind of a specialised matching process perhaps for them, or what can we do for people that are a bit more advanced in their career?
Well, I think the thing there is to just apply for the scheme. We have a lot of women who are sort of further ahead in their career. I mean, obviously, because it's still a sort of very pyramid shaped kind of career, there are fewer senior women than there are at entry level, right? But we do have, some very senior journalists like yourself or like Eleanor in the pool. So, yeah, I mean, I would say just apply. And I think, one of the things that's really fascinating about running the scheme or trying to run it anyway, is how you see the same sort of problems coming up according to what stage of people's career they're at. So often for more senior women, it might be things like they've had quite a long career break and they want to get back in the game, or they've been in a really kind of great senior role and they've been made redundant. It's quite a brutal industry, isn't it? And the older you are and the more you earn and the bigger your sort of pension scheme is, the more likely you are to kind of get the chop. So there are all sorts of different issues at every level. So I would say, yeah, definitely, go for it, and we'll try and find somebody who who can understand where you're at, kind of thing. And I sort of completely agree with what everybody said, is that it's quite random who applies and who's in the pool as a mentor. and we try and match people as closely as we can, but we can't always do that. And I think, as a lot of the panelists have said, a lot of the value isn't about, well, you know, how do I get my next job in health writing, or, you know, move up the chain on the news desk or whatever it is. It's about having good conversations with somebody that you really trust and can have in confidence. I think one thing that I remember somebody who's been a mentor and a mentee over the years said is that what's really good about it is that, you know, as a mentee, or you should know, that nothing leaves the room. You know, it's completely confidential. And I mean, if there are any mentors here, I think that is important to bear in mind, you know, not to sort of tell somebody's boss that you're mentoring them, or, you know, your boss happens to be a friend of your mentor, or just sort of keep that under your hat, because that can be compromising, I think.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point to make. So we've got a lot of very senior women who are there to mentor people that are more advanced in their career. So don't let that put you off applying. Please do apply. But I think there's another interesting thing, is that you don't have to be massively senior either to volunteer to be a mentor, because quite often somebody who's right at the beginning of their career actually doesn't want advice from somebody who's really, really at the top of the tree. They want somebody who's like, you know, maybe just a couple of years further on than themselves. And so we offer that opportunity as well, don't we, Hilly?
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely right. And also, I mean, I think one of the great joys about being a mentor is this idea of reverse mentoring. So that, you know, if you're mentoring somebody who's younger than you, or, you know, you're working with people that are younger than you learn a hell of a lot from them, particularly about all the kind of digital sort of tech side of journalism, you know, the way that the whole industry is heading towards different tech platforms, different social media platforms. I mean, I do quite a lot of teaching, and one of the things I love about it is how much I learned from the students. So it's a, you know, it's a great kind of two-way process. So I think mentees, you know, can bear that in mind, that actually you've probably got quite a lot to offer your mentor if they're a bit older than you, or, you know, they're not very familiar with how to make TikTok videos, or, you know, Instagram reels, or whatever the next thing is going to be.
Yeah. In fact, I wanted to ask you, Amanda, having been a mentor, what have you seen the benefits for yourself as a journalist from mentoring other people?
I am incapable of taking my own advice. I think there are some, like, you're completely right, Hilly, like there are, that you get the same problems over and over again. And actually, it is almost like talking to yourself when someone has the same problem as you. And I'm like, God, this is really good advice, Amanda. Like, you should really listen to it.
I know.
And I think actually you learn a lot about yourself.
Yes. I think that's interesting, because it's just having those conversations out loud, isn't it? That might otherwise just be churning over and over in your mind. But Ellie, what if, though, you find yourself in a situation where you don't really feel you're getting everything you might wish out of your mentoring experience? How can you get things back on track, do you think?
I think, first of all, you should, and it might feel scary, like, have an honest conversation with your mentor and say to them, you know, these are the goals that I came in with at the start of the year, and I don't feel that we're maybe progressing with them as quickly as I'd hoped we were. Like, can we reset and figure out how we might be able to make that work? And then give that a bit of time. I don't know, give that a month, give that 6 weeks, and see if things change. And if they don't, then I would go to Hilly and Kate probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, and have a conversation with them, because yes, you've got your mentor, but you've also got this like great infrastructure around you from women in journalism, and everyone is here to help you. So I would kind of, try like step 1, step 2. And then the other thing I'd say about the mentoring scheme in general is that your mentor is a great resource, but so are the other mentees on the course, because you are all going to rise up through the industry together. And so you should, and maybe some, you know, maybe some of you will be based all over the country, so it might be online as opposed to in person, but there's real value in all getting to know one another and kind of being friends / colleagues from afar as you all make your various paths upwards, and maybe, you know, give each other a helping hand when you can.
Yeah. And I think, because of COVID, we haven't had the opportunity to get together as much in the last couple of years, but we do have a networking event on the 12th of July. So do all absolutely come. That's at the October Gallery in London. So for people who are kind of in the London and South East, it'd be great to see you. And then I think, Hilly, we're also sort of thinking about maybe what more we could do along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, can I just go back to what Ellie just said, that I mean, yes, sometimes, unfortunately, these relationships just don't quite work out. And obviously, because of the last couple of years with COVID, it's been very disruptive. People have fallen ill, or they've had a lot of caring responsibilities. There've been people who have had to drop out as mentors because they were homeschooling and running the news desk at the wherever. People get pregnant, they go on maternity leave. There are all sorts of reasons why the relationship just might not be viable that are completely understandable. So, it's important that in fact, I really appreciate it if people get in touch and let me know, because what's difficult is that anybody who's been a senior mentee becomes a junior mentor, right? The next year, that's how the system works. So what's difficult is then if that relationship with this on the senior level has gone a bit pear-shaped, and then I put the senior mentee in the junior mentors pool, and then they come back to me and I pair them with somebody and they come back and say, oh, well, I never met my mentor.
Yes.
It didn't work out. So it's actually really helpful for me to know where things aren't working out, and if I can find somebody else, I will. And I have done a lot actually this year, just because of the way it's been so tricky.
Yeah, that's right. And I think Kate's just put in the chat there as well that we've also got regional events this year as well, and we have one in Leeds at the beginning of October. So I mean, to Ellie's point, there are opportunities, I think, to meet up and to meet other people at a similar stage of their career as you. They might do a completely different bit of journalism, but there's still a great sort of security net as well to kind of get to know and to move from there. I mean, Eamon, have you sort of met, I mean, there's people that you're training with, but other sort of journalists coming up at the moment that it's good to hang around with?
Yeah, definitely. I think even though everyone's doing different things, and all the mentees, especially at like the spring party or like the other women in journalism events, you meet so many like student people who are part of women in journalism through the student membership, and it's nice to see how their sort of careers develop. And I think it's so helpful to keep in touch with people who are at a similar stage, because you go through sort of like similar problems and similar, and you can really help each other through that. So I think it's really good to have, and it's also really supportive, because sometimes it's things that maybe you're too scared or too embarrassed to ask your mentor about. You can ask someone who's like, maybe in similar age or might have had like a similar experience closer to the time as well. So I think it's really helpful to have those connections and like get these events as well, the Women in Journalism events, and like meeting people who are part of Women in Journalism and also on the mentoring program.
Yeah, I mean, Ellie, do you find a lot of people find networking difficult? That's why we're running a How to Network event in July the 12th. But and some people don't think it's important. They think you turn up to work, you get your head down, you work hard, you go home at the end of it, and that's enough, or it should be enough. What do you think?
That might be enough for some people, but I know that for my line of work, I have to network with other journalists. I have to network with publicists a lot, both as a way of setting up interviews and also finding stories. I think that we're in a very like human-facing, relationship-based industry, and so you do need to be out there networking. That doesn't mean to say I don't find it like completely galling at times. I do, but I figured out the type of networking that works for me. So I hate going to a cocktail party and being in a huge ballroom of people and having to make small talk. However, I'm much better at setting up at lunches and coffees with people, either before work or during the day. That's the way that I find I build more meaningful relationships. And so I don't necessarily accept invites to massive cocktail parties anymore or whatever. I mean, there's not a ton of cocktail parties in journalism anymore, sadly. But at the start of my career, I felt like I had to say yes to like every press event. Then I came away from them feeling that actually it hadn't been like hugely meaningful. So now I make an effort. I'll probably have like 2 networking events, a coffee or a lunch a week, just to keep things ticking over.
Yeah, with new people or with people that you already know?
When I first moved to New York in 2019, it was all with new people, because I didn't have a network out here at all. And I was pretty shameless about asking everyone I knew and I'd worked with in London if they knew anyone in New York in journalism who I could meet with. And it was kind of like dating for friends or colleagues. I went and saw everyone that I was put in touch with. And some have led to, like, my closest friend out here is a woman who I was put in touch with by a very senior female journalist. And she said, oh, you might want to talk about like working together. And actually we've become she's my best friend out here. And through her, I've met all her work colleagues and she's met all my work colleagues. And I'm sure our future careers will be so enabled by knowing one another. So I would just say yes. Whenever someone offers to put you in touch with someone, say yes and go and meet them, because you never know where it might be. And don't worry if you find like networking en masse hideous, because I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to ask you, Amanda, about your top tips for networking.
I quite like it. I have
Really?
to
Even if it's people that you've never met before, you don't?
Oh yeah, no, I don't mind. I will honestly talk to anyone. I think part of the problem that we have with networking is that, like, it's called networking.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I never think about it as networking. It's just like having a chat and having a nice time. And then if they turn out to be useful further down the line, then great. But like the initial point is just to like go in with the attitude of having a chat and find out like who this person is, which I mean is basically why we became journalists in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Because we're interested in other people. And I think if you just see it through like that lens, rather than like, I have to find someone really senior and they've got to give me a job, like you'll come across as weird, because that is a weird way to have a human interaction.
You're right. The word networking seems to sort of indicate that you're out to get something, doesn't it? Whereas if you can make it just seem more like having a nice chat with people that share similar interests, then why wouldn't you want to do that? Yeah.
Totally. And those people, they should be your natural friends because you have so much in common with them already. You have similar problems, like the chance of you getting on already are really high. And then when you start building your network, you'll see the same people at similar events all the time. And then in the end, you'll end up looking forward to going things because you're like, I wonder who I'll see there. Yeah. So actually, I think you just need to reframe it in your mind and not think to yourself, what can I get out of this person? And instead just try and have a nice time. Yeah. And also, if all else fails and the conversation dies, I always say to someone, how's your week been?
Yes.
That is like the easiest question then, because from what they say, you can start building a conversation. So if your brain goes completely blank, how's your week been?
No, it's great. Now, I'm incredibly sorry about this, but I've got another meeting which I'm going to have to go to. So I'm going to hand you over to the very capable hands of Hilly, who's going to, I think, talk a bit more about sort of where we're at with this year's mentoring programme and the one that's probably not even that far away now, at the back end of this year. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conversation. I'll see you later. Bye, okay. Bye.
Thank you very much, Alison. Have a great evening. Okay, everyone. So what I'd love to know is if anybody here or any of our guests have got any more questions or any kind of points they'd like to make or sort of contribution they'd like to make, that would be absolutely great. And I'd also like to ask everybody really for their suggestions about how we can try as part of the mentoring scheme to just kind of support you all and offer you all a bit more and build up, you know, more of a community around the scheme in the way that maybe Ali's been talking about. So it might be things like, you know, arranging a meetup for mentees in a room in a pub, which is sort of super easy to do, or it might be providing you with some more resources on the website that you could delve into about the whole idea of kind of career development. Might be having some more kind of expert career development suggestions, specialist sort of panelists, and as meet up in a pub would be great. If anybody else, okay, meet up for all mentees, that would be lovely. That's easy to arrange. As Alison said, we're having this big networking event in London, but obviously it would be, what's important too, I think, is to be as inclusive as we can, because there are lots of mentors and mentees all over the country. Sometimes, you know, somebody in Bournemouth is being mentored by somebody in Leeds, if that seemed like the best the best match. So I don't know if the panelists have got any more suggestions about things that they felt would have helped them a bit more, maybe starting out, or things that we could offer you either as a mentor or as a mentee. That would be great. I mean, Eamon, you have just, you know, applied recently for the scheme. How did you find the whole application process? Any suggestions, ideas?
Yeah, no, I thought it was pretty straightforward, and it was quite good having sort of like saying what my interests were and where I would like to be. I think what would be good, and I can't remember if this is on the form, but maybe having putting down like what your sort of yearly goal is and where you want to end up from a year's time, and where you sort of want to see yourself at the end of the mentorship. And I think that would be really helpful in terms of like vision.
Yeah, okay, that's a really good idea. So making the goals a bit more specific and kind of targeted, rather than, you know, I'd like to move up to the next level, or I want to get the job in radio or something. Yeah, okay, that's really helpful. Thanks. Amanda, how about you? Anything that you feel would have supported you better, either as a mentor or mentee, or that you would have liked to have happened? I think you're on mute at the moment.
No, I'm not. I'm here.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I'm very social, so any like social things that we can do where we all meet up together. I completely take your point about people being around the country, but I don't mind if they're mentees, mentors, whoever they are. Like, I'm always up for a games night or like anything really. Like, I think it's just nice being together, and I think that's the best way after a few drinks for you to make friends. And I wonder as well if there's a way, because I know sometimes I'll get a random desperate text from someone on the committee who will remain nameless when someone wants to go into broadcast. It might be quite nice, like if you get to the point where either you have taken redundancy or you need a career change, to be like, I want to do science journalism. Do you have anyone that can help me? Like, just so that it's, if you don't have any contacts, or like with me, obviously it would be broadcast. Like for people that want to get into broadcast, like I'm more than happy to talk to them. There's a million people I could put them in touch with. So maybe make it more like not bespoke and not really mentoring, but just like that support net for when you really need a bit of extra oomph.
Yeah, so just a contact that you could be put in touch with, who might be able to have a chat with you when something's gone a bit pear-shaped, or there's a, you know, like a question you don't know how to answer, like Ellie saying she didn't know how to kind of make the next move. Yeah.
Or also,
okay.
if you want to go into some sort of specialism, like Eamon with sport, like as soon as she said it, I was like, God, I know loads of people that work in sport journalism who I could put her in touch with. So it's just more like, if that, you know, that there's a specific route that you want to go in, but you don't have contacts in that route, it would be nice if there was some way for us to like join those dots of people that do know those people and people that need them.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. There's some really nice tips here. Alexandra Campbell has said top tips will be helpful. We're going to do some top tips tonight. Eamon's writing them up for us, so they'll be on the website and we'll put them out on our social media. And I think some anonymized case histories of things that worked, that didn't work even, that would be good. I mean, I think what we'll be able to do from tonight as well is to make some clips from things, you know, highlights of things that people have said, and we can put that on our Instagram, whatever. Camille has said, might it be possible to do that in the WiJ Facebook group? Yeah, I mean, definitely. Or we could, you know, post a link in the Facebook group to the stuff on the website, because we've got a LinkedIn, a Twitter, and an Instagram account. I mean, one thing I had thought about was having a LinkedIn group just for the mentoring scheme, so it would be invitation only. You know, it wouldn't be open to people. Would have to have been or be on the mentoring scheme to join the group, because I think maybe that would be a way of really sharing content, you know, and being able to sort of comment and link up sort of within the networking. I mean, within the mentoring scheme. I mean, just people who just pop in the chat. Yeah, I mean, maybe Julia and Alexandra putting this in the chat. I mean, maybe that's something we should think about doing. I think maybe LinkedIn's more the place to do it than Facebook. I don't know. Does anyone agree, disagree? Eamon, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think LinkedIn will be good. I'll sort that out and get everyone together. That's actually a really good idea. So thank you.
Yeah, and we could reach out to because obviously I've still got contact details of people who've been on the scheme in the past. We could reach out to everybody. I mean, the only thing we'll say about that is that these things, it's always a great idea to set them up, but then somebody's got to mind them and feed them. You know, these platforms are very hungry, I think, for content. So I think maybe we'll go away and have a chat with Alison and Kate, and just to sort of see how you know, have we got the resource to like keep it going. But that's good. Yeah, Eliza says LinkedIn, good, sounds good. yeah, WhatsApp group might be more useful, but then somebody's got to be the admin for that. Anyway, we'll have a chat about it, but thanks for all those suggestions, and it's great to know that you'd love to be able to sort of be in touch with each other more beyond, you know, our general kind of all-purpose events, as it were. So any more suggestions, any more questions, anything else anybody wants to talk about? Anybody, you know, anybody got any if anybody's got any sort of problems that they think might apply to other people, you can put your message in the chat to me, and then I'll be the only one who sees it. So if there's something you want to raise which you don't really want to raise in public, we can do that via the chat, and then I will just read it out to everyone.
I was just going to say, Billy. Oh, go on.
Yeah. No, go on, Amanda.
Just in the chat, there's a lot of discussion about whether or not there should be a mentor WhatsApp group, which I know fills a lot of us with fear because we're in 790 million WhatsApp groups. But I do wonder, like, when it's just because of the problem we had earlier, where someone didn't have contacts in a particular industry or in a particular like section of journalism, because then you could say this person wants to be a science correspondent. Does anyone like have science contacts? It might be nice to have for the mentors to have that support around them as well.
Yeah, I mean, but do you think that's because I think probably I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud. I don't think I'd want to do a LinkedIn group and a WhatsApp group. I think it would be better to have one, and you know, the thing is that then you can, if you're on LinkedIn, you can that person can become a contact with you on LinkedIn in a way that in WhatsApp you'd have to ask the admin person, you know, to sort of put you, that can get quite, anyway, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud. But I think there's definitely obviously a desire and a need for something.
I think we could do have all the mentors in a WhatsApp, or whoever sort of agrees, in a WhatsApp chat, and then have all the sort of like mentees in a LinkedIn one. I think that could work, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think I suspect that a lot of, you know, going back to what Ellie said about people being super busy, especially the more senior women, I think if we asked, if they, you know, I think they would just think, I just don't want to be in a WhatsApp chat group with it pinging at me all day. But for the mentees, you know, that might be really more helpful. I think it's just something we obviously need to do something. I think it's just working out what's the best way to do it.
People also don't need, for people who don't know me, I'm Julia Gregory, I'm ex-committee member, and I'm a WiJ mentor, and I have been a WiJ mentee. People can choose whether they want to go on a group, but I know, you know, I'm not a high-flying, super powerful editor, and sometimes I would find it really helpful, a WhatsApp group, just to say, you know, I've got somebody who wants to go into sports journalism, anyone got a contact. What I was going to say, though, from a mentor's point of view, I think it's very important for mentees to feel comfortable to contact their mentors, because sometimes you might not hear from your mentee for ages and ages, and we are all very busy, and, you know, pandemic has added lots of delightful stresses to us, and I think that's really, really important for people. You know, last year I was mentoring 2 people, and with the best win in the world, and I was also job hunting. I don't have the time to be chasing my mentees all the time, but I think it's really important for people not to feel frightened about contacting their mentors and say, can I have help with this, or can we have another chat, and maybe initiate some of it as well.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Julia. I think that's a really good point. And it sort of echoes a bit what Ellie was saying earlier about how, you know, realize, I think, Ellie, I can't remember if we were chatting about this just before we started, Ellie, that, you know, it was several months before Eleanor got in touch with you, and it was just because she was sort of super busy. But she did get in touch with you eventually, and then the whole thing took off. And I think Julia's absolutely right, you know, being persistent as a journalist and being ignored is something that, you know, you have to learn to do. I mean, in the nicest possible way, being persistent and being polite, but yes, sort of getting in touch. I mean, sometimes mentees get in touch with me after I've done the pairing, and it is clear in the guide in the introductory letter that we expect the mentees to get in touch with the mentors, and they get in touch. Well, I haven't heard from my mentors. I say, well, they've emailed the mentor once or something. You know, you might have to use a little bit of initiative. And obviously, if you try several times and that doesn't happen, then you can come back to me and I will try and sort of get hold of them. And very often there's a reason, you know, somebody's just had a baby or whatever it is, or they've just, you know, lost a job, or something's gone a bit wrong and they just haven't got the time. But I think just being politely persistent is important. Yeah. Okay, I think we're coming up towards the end of the session. Oh, hang on. What's Alex trying to say? You could ask everyone which of the groups on social media platforms they'd use more. For some people, there are already too many WhatsApp groups and they're hard to manage, for example. Yes, okay. I mean, I think that's a really good idea. We can perhaps go away in a little bit of a huddle after this and see what we think would work best. But just sort of bearing in mind that we're all volunteers, and you know, there's a limited amount of time to sort of husband things. So trying to do something that's the most efficient, I think, is really helpful. Okay, any more questions or points? We've got a couple of minutes left, or are we all done? Looks like nothing else coming up in the chat. So just to say, in that case, thank you so much to Eamon and Ellie for joining us from New York, and Amanda, and all the questions and points you've made, everybody in the chat. Thanks for coming. I think it's the first time we've ever done anything like this, and I'm really glad we've done it. It's thrown up lots of, I think, useful tips and advice, and lots of suggestions, and for me and the rest of the mentoring gang to get our heads around. So hope we might see some of you in London on July the 12th. And if not, I think hopefully you'll be hearing from us as the mentoring team a lot more often. So thanks very much again, and thanks in absentia to Alison for being such a brilliant chair. She always does these things so well. So yeah, hope to see you again soon, and meet some of you, I hope, in person over the coming months. Thank you everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.